Hello, everyone. It's Joe from the Strange Voyage Files. It is January 8th, 2026, and I am doing this one Intermission by Dio. The live mini album, EP, um, whatever you'd like to call it. It's an interesting one for the sake that this came out of that Dio box set, so it says Vertigo. The U.S. it would have been if this was the U.S. would have actually been Warner Brothers. But it's an interesting one because first off, we've got the introduction to Craig Goldie to everybody on the song "Time to Burn," which is the only studio track, and I think it's a great track. I really like "Time to Burn." In fact, there are songs on Dream Evil that I think they absolutely could have taken off and put "Time to Burn" on, and it would have been a stronger album. But it is what it is. Now, we kind of get a bit of a Sharon Osbourne thing going on because, as I showed you, Craig Goldie is in the pictures. I read the sleeve, and if it's an exact reprint, it does not talk about who's playing on this album. Yeah, no, it really. So if this is an exact reprint, I never had this. Oh wait, hang on, am I wrong? Am I wrong? Nope. If this is an exact reprint of what came out, and I never had this on vinyl, um, they kind of pulled Craig Goldie plate on it because the picture's on there, kind of doing a Rudy and Tommy thing with, and I just happen to be wearing the shirt with Diary of a Madman. But it is Vivian playing on the live tracks, and in fact, Craig, according to Wikipedia, Craig plays overdubs, some rhythm on those live tracks. So I don't know. Could be the. I guess that's the case. But this is interesting in a couple reasons. One being that it's an EP of a very big tour for a lackluster album. So there's so many different weird moving parts in this. Also, I'm not going to rank this. I don't do that with live albums. I didn't do it with Live After Death. Didn't do it with Ozzy Live. So I don't do that with live albums. I think this is a good this for what we got for this EP for whatever you want to call it. I think it's good. I enjoy it. So it's not something I dislike. But so Sacred Heart comes out, and sorry, Sacred Heart comes out. That's my ringtone. Sharon, don't sue me. Um, Sacred Heart comes out, and it's lackluster. It is very it is not well received. It does. I mean, it still sells, I believe, 500,000 copies, which is great, but it's a big disappointment compared to the first two albums. Dio and Wendy are, again, you never get the full story of what's going on. Were they getting divorced? Were they divorced? Were they just fighting? What was going on? But it was a bad time between them. The band was mad because they weren't making money. Just the bricks in the wall are slowly just falling out one by one by one. So they do record this lackluster album. This is definitely where I think they should have pulled a producer in. Because somebody, I think Ronnie, the band said at this point in time he was very difficult to deal with. He would not listen to anybody. They needed somebody, whether it be Martin Birch, who worked with Ronnie on the two Black Sabbath albums, and I think Ronnie would have listened to Martin Birch. I think he would have been a great producer to come in. Max Norman would have been phenomenal to come in, but somebody that even even if he called Roger Glover to do it, I think somebody that Ronnie would listen to needed to be able to say, hey, no, Ronnie, this song sucks, or this one isn't working, or this should be a B-side, or this should be, we need to change the course. But that wasn't happening. And Ronnie was Ronnie's ship. And this is really where Sacred Heart is where that line of this is a band versus a Ronnie Dio solo career really kind of blurs. By the time we get to Dream Evil, it's pretty much, it's pretty much established. It's a Ronnie solo band, and that is absolutely the case by the time of Lock Up the Wolves. But we get this lackluster album. However, the tour is incredible. They have the Dragon, they have the Laser Light Show, they have all these. The band sounds great. The band is in tune. Ronnie never gives a bad show. It just isn't possible for the man to do it. So, and he's got 3 albums worth of music. Now, even though Sacred Heart is not full of gems like Holy Diver and Last in Line, it still has some great songs on it. Now, people differ on what good songs they like and which ones they don't and whatnot. But, most people like Hungry for Heaven. I like Rock and Roll Children a lot. I do like the title track. I think they're between those 3 albums, and of course he's going to throw a couple Sabbath things, and he does these great reprises with Last in Line and Holy Diver and Children of the Sea, and is it Heaven and Hell that's in there too? It's just insanely good. But he does these reprises with songs, this mixed melody. The tour is incredibly successful. Unbelievably successful. Much more successful than the album. It's a shame Sacred Heart was not a hit, because I think this would have just skyrocketed him to where he should have been, to the heights that Ronnie actually should have achieved. But that doesn't happen. And as we know, Vivian leaves or gets fired, whatever you want to have, or whatever. Vivian's gone mid-tour. It's all over money. So, and the band has said that, Vinny Appice and Jimmy Bain have both said that the story goes Dio promised them X amount of money by the 3rd album, but never wanted to tell Wendy. And when the 3rd album came around and it was time for him to pay them, he wouldn't do it. So, and I believe that. I do believe, we all love Ronnie. And again, I've said this a million times. As far as fans are concerned, there was no human being on the planet that was better to his fans than Ronnie James Dio. Nobody. But man, he could be an SOB to work with. There are a lot of people that said he was very temperamental. He would fly off the handle. He held grudges. A lot of these things with fellow artists. Never with fans. So good to us. So, and this is why I think people have this even... God, how many years? Is it almost 20 years later? God, blessed. This many, forever later, where there's so many of us that are just insanely loyal to the man because he was so insanely loyal to us. But it's a shame with this because it's a good album. I like it. I do like Intermission. I don't understand why it wasn't a double LP. And I do know, and again, you read Wikipedia, read this, it said, one of the first things it says is people were disappointed by that. And I remember, this is right when I'm getting into Dio. This is right when I'm getting into metal. This is when, and I do remember my friends who were into metal, like, yeah, there's this garbage EP that's out. Remember, this is in the wake of Live After Death. This is in the, Live Evil is just a few years before this. You have these, the tribute album is about to come out. You have these colossal live albums that span through the 80s. It just made no sense why this was just this little EP, especially for the tour. It's not like the tour, Dream Evil tour, I think, did okay. Lock Up the Wolves, they're down to theaters and clubs, I believe. This was major arenas. I don't get why they did not do a full double album. Especially now, the thing being is Dio's very heavy on videos. There were 2 videos released before this. Then we get the Sacred Heart live video, which I probably came close to breaking the tape. I watched it so many times. It's so phenomenal. I just don't get it. And I remember, I've told you guys this, I'm not a live album guy. I don't get why we didn't get a live album from Dio at this time. I mean, I think it would have helped. I think it really, really, if he had a successful live album going into Dream Evil, I think it would have helped Dream Evil. That's just me. This was not, I don't know how many people really knew about this. Or once they heard it was 5 songs, it was 6 songs with the with Time to Burn, you're probably like, well, who cares? Screw this. So, it is what it is. Well, and it's an interesting situation because, of course, Viv's out, Craig Goldie's in, and this is kind of being pushed as a, kind of, and again, Craig Goldie's on the picture on the back. It really makes you think, oh, and that may have hurt too. Because, Vivian Campbell was loved by a lot of people. I've said it, and I don't care. You can say what you want in the comments. Vivian's a good guitar player, and I think it was very good in Dio. Never did much for me. I don't think Dio... I was, again, roast in the comments all you want. I was never impressed by too many of Dio's guitar players. Rowan Robertson was the one exception. I thought he was unbelievable, and I thought he brought a great guitar sound to a great album. Vivian was good, and he was a good songwriter, man, because those songs have Vivian's name on them. Not a deal breaker for me, but it was for a lot of people. And I think that this little 5-song live thing with Craig Goldie's picture on it, giving the impression that Craig Goldie is the guy, I think that's what really, this didn't go where it should have gone. It is a good little EP. It's a good, very made in Japanish, but Made in Japan came out at a point where the band was about to change singers, and there was a big transition. They were, becoming a totally different band. Dio was too, but Iron Maiden had the foresight to put out a live album at this time. Dio was, headlining arenas at this point. I don't know why he didn't do a double live album. Well, yeah, that's a little, again, I just want to do a quick little video talk about this. It's fun. It's good. I don't know, because again, I got this as part of that box set. I don't know the availability of this thing on eBay or whatnot on CD or how it goes. God, did I have this on cassette? Because I don't think I had this on CD. May have had this thing on cassette, because I know I didn't have it on an album. So, and it wasn't one back then that I listened to all that often. All right. Well, tell me what you think of Intermission. Tell me what you think maybe the differences between Craig Goldie and Vivian Campbell, and maybe, how, if you were around at the time, were you disappointed that we didn't get the double live album? All right, subscribe. Again, Madison's going to work on that. X and Instagram and all that stuff. We'll get it some point before I drop dead. Thank you, and I will see you.